Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakaacharya Ashtottara Shatashrishman Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakaacharya Ashtottara Shatashrishman Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Ko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gokopinath Shyamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Samavera Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the Samal devotees. All glories to the Samal devotees. All glories to the Samal devotees. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj. Today is the 15th of July, 1 p.m. Honolulu, Hawaii, 2024. And we are wrapping up the entire third canto Hari Hari Bol. Starting with the 31st verse in the 33rd chapter. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tadvirasit punyatamam kshetram trailokya vishrutam namna siddha padam yatra sasam siddhimupeyushi. The place where Devahuti achieved her perfection, my dear Vidura, is understood to be a most sacred spot. It is known all over the three worlds as Siddhapada. Tasyastad yoga vidutha martyam abhut sarit srotasam pravara somya siddhida siddha sevita. Dear Vidura, the material elements of her body have melted into water and are now a flowing river, which is the most sacred of all rivers. Anyone who bathes in that river also attains perfection, and therefore all persons who desire perfection go bathe there. Kapilopi Mahayogi Bhagavan Piturashramat Matarang Samanudyapya Pragudichim Disham Yayau. My dear Vidura, the great sage Kapila, the personality of Godhead, left his father's hermitage with the permission of his mother and went towards the northeast. Siddhacharana Gandharvair Munibhishchapsaroganai Stuyamana Samudrena Dattarhana Niketana. While he was passing in the northern direction, all the celestial denizens known as Charanas and Gandharvas, as well as the Munis and the damsels of the heavenly planets, prayed and offered him all respects. The ocean offered him oblations and a place of residence. Purport. It is understood that Kapila Muni first went towards the Himalayas and traced the course of the river Ganges, and he again came to the delta of the Ganges at the sea known as the Bay of Bengal. The ocean gave him residence at a place still known as Ganga Sagar, where the river Ganges meets the sea. That place is called Ganga Sagara Tirtha, and even today people gather there to offer respects to Kapila Dev, the original author of the Sankhya system of philosophy. Unfortunately, this Sankhya system has been misrepresented by an impostor who is also named Kapila, but that other system of philosophy does not tally with anything described in the Sankhya of Kapila in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Guru Maharaj, are you available to comment? I don't have anything at the current time, but if there's anything either in the chat or...
I'm available. I'm just, my Kindle is misbehaving, but I'm basically available. And don't have anything to say yet.
All right. I think I'll go ahead and read through the end. Aste Yogam. Is someone commenting? I'm getting some sound. Perhaps it's... Oh, okay. Just making sure.
And what's our number now?
Now we are on 35, the last 2 or 3 verses here.
Okay.
Aste Yogam Samasthaya Ankacharya Bhishtutah Trayanam Apilokanam Upashantyaya Samahitah. Even now, Kapila Muni is staying there in trance for the deliverance of the conditioned souls in the 3 worlds, and all the acharyas, or great teachers, of the system of Sankhya philosophy are worshipping him. Etan negaditam tata yat prishtoham tavanagha kapilasya cha sangvado devahutyascha pavanaha. My dear son, since you have inquired from me, I have answered. O sinless one, the descriptions of Kapila Dev and his mother and their activities are all the purest of all pure discourses. Yaidam anushanoti yo bidhate Kapila Muner matam. My Kindle is throwing words in the wrong order. Let's see. Yaidam anushanoti yo bidhate Kapila Muner matam. Atma Yoga Guhyam Bhagavati Kritadhi Suparnaketav Upalabhate Bhagavat Padaravinnam. The description of the dealings of Kapila Dev and his mother is very confidential, and anyone who hears or reads this narration becomes a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is carried by Garuda. And he therefore enters into the abode of the Supreme Lord to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The narration of Kapila Dev and his mother Devahuti is so perfect and transcendental that even if one only hears or reads this description, he achieves the highest perfectional goal of life, for he engages in the loving service of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no doubt that Devahuti, who had the Supreme Lord as her son, and who followed the instructions of Kapila Dev so nicely, attained the highest perfection of human life. If I may, I'm going to turn it back to you again, Guru Maharaj. I don't have anything to say.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Ram. So as Praveen points out in the chat, we're hearing about Devahuti Putra Kapila. He says the deity of Lord Kapila is still present at Ganga Sagar. The Mela, which happens, is the most populated festival, second to Kumbh Mela. When I asked the priest at Ganga Sagar, which Kapila is this? He emphatically said, Devahuti Putra Kapila. Srila Prabhupada was keen to have his lectures on the teachings of Lord Kapila published as a book. In his last days, in fact, the book was produced. 2 books were sent to Srila Prabhupada. The Science of Self-Realization and Teachings of Lord Kapila. And Srila Prabhupada seemed more enthusiastic about the Kapila book. That night, I was with Srila Prabhupada, and he, quite late in the night, it was quiet, no one really much. And one or two books would be Prabhupada. And he asked me to read. I said, what? He said, read from that book that came today. And I said, well, 2 books came. He said, the Kapila book. So I was reading from that book and reading aloud. And it just, I was impressed that each page, each paragraph was so profound that one's whole life could change just by hearing this book. There was so much understanding into every word, teachings of Lord. And when the book was being edited, the editor, Hayagriva Prabhu, didn't very much like the subtitle, Son of Devahuti, for him it was reminiscent of Son of Frankenstein or something like that. So he preferred to leave out, but Prabhupada had to be the son of Devahuti. Because there are two Kapila Devs, and Prabhupada emphatically wanted to make sure that the reader understood that this was Devahuti Putra, the incarnation of Krishna, not the theist Kapila. The teachings of this Kapila Dev, Bhagavatam, truth about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the process of devotional service by which to revive our relationship with Him. Lord Dave instructed this to his mother. That's the duty of the son, to see to the welfare of the mother, especially in the absence of the father. The father, when he renounced order, Dave, who trusted to her son, Kapil Dev, and Kapil Dev instructed her about Sankhya philosophy as described in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we can take advantage of these instructions and also become enlightened in devotional service. Hare Krishna.
We have a question from Saraswati Devi. If you'd like to unmute yourself.
Pranams Param Purushottam and all the Vaishnavas. Up until now, it's pretty clear about what is sinful actions and reactions and how to advance the Krishna consciousness. But I came across something that sort of contradicts about karma and actions. And it's in Bhagavatam 7.11.35. Here's the verse. The Antyajas, men of low class, are accustomed.
Saraswati, something really awful is going on with your audio, so that it's becoming scrambled. I don't quite understand why.
It might be that you're not muted, Guru Maharaj. I think if you mute yourself, her audio might come in more clearly.
Let's try.
Go ahead, Saraswati Devi.
Okay, so it says the Antyajas, men of lower classes, are accustomed to stealing, drinking, and illicit sex, but that is not considered sinful. And then 7.11.34, quote, just as drops of ghee on a fire never extinguishes a fire, but a flood of ghee will, similarly, overindulgence in lusty desires mitigates such desires entirely. Purport: those who are too sinful and have been born in lower classes are allowed to enjoy sinful activities fully, for there is a chance that these activities will become detestful to them and they get an opportunity to be purified. So my question is, but we are told that knowingly or unknowingly sinful acts will generate reactions, like the kriyaman karma that goes into the storehouse of karma called the sanchita karma. So how can an overindulgence in sinful acts actually lead to purification? And because we know sense gratification, that our material desires are unlimited. So our overindulgence, how can that actually lead to purification and sense control? Hare Krishna.
This is the Ituk approach. For a sensible person to be regulated in, so that one become healthy, one will advance in one's. But if a person is just too uncontrolled, then all right, eat till you puke. Then you'll learn No rules for everyone else, but for you, eat till you puke. Then you'll learn. Yes, that's the approach. That you're so great, you'll not understand. So just fully indulge. You're going to do that anyway. So just fully indulge your senses, and gradually you'll come to the point. Disgust. Otherwise, what can be done for you? You can't understand by hearing. You can't understand even by some bad experience. So now just fully indulge your senses, and then one day you'll understand how this is miserable.
All right, we have, thank you very much. We have a comment from Ras Prabhu. Hare Krishna Maharaj. What distinguishes...
I'm reminded of George Orwell. What is it? Animals and trolls go. Yeah. I guess it's not so relevant. Go ahead.
All right. Always nice to hear from... My sister and I were just talking about Animal Farm, so it's funny that you brought him up just now. Ross says, maybe if you mute yourself, Guru Maharaj, my voice is also coming in. I'm sorry. Hare Krishna Maharaj, what distinguishes Vyasadev's approach from an imposter approach, like imposter Kapila, that allows us to accept Vyasadev's works as an authority?
The imposter is an atheist. So he's also got the 26 of these material nature things. It's the same basic picture, but with the personality of God. So he's a materialist. Everything is coming from material nature. That's the difference. It's I'm a little far from the microphone. I'm cutting out a little. Let's see. Maybe let me just make a hardware adjustment here.
You sound good right now.
Okay. Anyway, it should be all right. Yes. So the atheists, they're both teaching Sankhya philosophy. They're both teaching counting up the material elements, analyzing their qualities. All that's there, but the atheist stops with material energy, and Vyasadeva is giving the personality of God, the cause of all. This most important difference. And we accept Vyasadeva's version over the atheist version because the atheist can't answer the ultimate questions. Where does everything come from? Janmadhyasya. In Vedanta, what's the origin of everything? Now, it's prior about the absolute truth. The absolute truth is the origin of everything. What is that origin? So, for so many different reasons, material nature doesn't work with everything, but the personality of God does. Okay, now it should work perfectly.
Maybe it would be appropriate to read the final commentary by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Seeing as we've reached the end of the canto, and there's a point that I appreciated, so I thought maybe we could share. Showing the goal of what was taught by Kapila to Devahuti by the results, he emphasizes the destination of persons similar to Devahuti. Just by explaining or just by hearing, one attains the Lord. What to speak then of the results from actually undertaking the instructions of Kapila? What supreme result then would a devotee like Devahuti attain? The word upa indicates additionally, that she attained a position as the Lord's associate, filled with prema for serving his lotus feet. So we have this nice Palashruti just by speaking about these activities, such a wonderful result is obtained. So never mind actually acting on the instructions of Kapila. Praveen Krishna Prabhu says, even after many lifetimes, we still don't puke. Charvita Charvananam. Yeah, lots of chewing, not enough puking. Yeah. We still don't learn. But now we're hearing about Kapila Dev and his instructions. So I think we're on the right track to not need to take that other route. All right. Shall we embark on a new canto? Panchatattva Prabhu, are you willing to read our first verse of Canto 4?
Yeah.
Sure. Fourth Canto, Chapter 1. Genealogical Table of the Daughters of Manu. Text 1. Maitreya Uvacha Manostu Satarupayam Tisra Kanyascha Jagyare Akutir Devahutischa Prasutir Iti Vishruta. Sri Maitreya said, Swayambhuva Manu begot 3 daughters in his wife Satarupa, and their names were Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. Purport. First of all, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, by whose order I am engaged in this Herculean task of writing commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam as the Bhaktivedanta purports. By his grace, we have finished 3 cantos already, and we are just trying to begin the 4th canto. By his divine grace, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Chaitanya, who began this Krishna consciousness movement of Bhagavad Dharma 500 years ago. And through his grace, let us offer our obeisances to the 6 Goswamis. And then let us offer our obeisances to Radha and Krishna, the spiritual couple who enjoy eternally in Vrindavan with their cowherd boys and damsels in Brajabhumi. Let us also offer our respectful obeisances to all the devotees and eternal servitors of the Supreme Lord. In this 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 31 chapters, and all these chapters describe the secondary creation by Brahma and the Manus. The Supreme Lord himself does the real creation by agitating his material energy, and then by his order, Brahma, the first living creature in the universe, attempts to create the different planetary systems and their inhabitants, expanding the population through his progeny, like Manu and other progenitors of living entities, who work perpetually under the order of the Supreme Lord. In the first chapter of this 4th canto, there are descriptions of the 3 daughters of Swayambhuva Manu and their descendants. The next 6 chapters describe the sacrifice performed by King Daksha and how it was spoiled. Thereafter, the activities of Maharaj Dhruva are described in 5 chapters. Then, in 11 chapters, the activities of King Prithu are described, and the next 8 chapters are devoted to the activities of the Pracheta kings. As described in the first verse of this chapter, Swayambhuva Manu had 3 daughters named Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. Of these 3 daughters, one daughter, Devahuti, has already been described along with her husband, Kardama Muni, and her son, Kapila Muni. In this chapter, the descendants of the first daughter, Akuti, will specifically be described. Swayambhuva Manu was the son of Brahma. Brahma had many other sons, but Manu's name is specifically mentioned first because he was a great devotee of the Lord. In this verse, there is also the word cha, indicating that besides the 3 daughters mentioned, Swayambhuva Manu also had 2 sons.
Om Jnana-timirandasya Sakaya Chakshur Militam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Srila Prabhupada is giving us some introductory remarks for the fourth canto, and he's preparing us for our journey through this canto by giving a kind of a summary, an outline of the canto and the stories that we're going to encounter here in the fourth canto. And he's reminding us that the actual creator of the material world is the Supreme Lord himself. He does the real creation. And Brahma does the secondary creation of the different planetary systems and their inhabitants. I thought it was interesting that Srila Prabhupada uses this word, this phrase for Brahma's creation work. He attempts to create the different planetary systems and their inhabitants, expanding the population through his progeny. It's an interesting turn of phrase. For Krishna, it's simply based on, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it's, these things go on without any hindrance or obstacle. But for the jivas, even the greatly empowered jivas like Brahma, there's endeavor. It's not simply a matter of snapping one's fingers or even thinking or desiring, although Lord Brahma is by far an empowered jiva, and sometimes the Supreme Personality of God himself. But here, so that's how I understand this expression, attempts to create different planetary systems. And we see sometimes Brahma's ideas and directives are even, seemingly frustrated. Like when the four Kumaras decided not to take up the task that Lord Brahma wanted of them, of being progenitors and so forth. And Narada Muni, Brahma's own son, was a participant in this, transcendental frustration. So here it is, a brief outline, and we're being welcomed to the fourth canto. Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj, would you like to say something?
Just, of course, we're all observing the process of meditating on the task that he's undertaken for himself, trying to carry out the orders of his spiritual master, and it's humbling to hear from the process.
It's quite reminiscent of what we're reading in Caitanya-caritamrta, the Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, asking the blessings of Vaishnavas, the deities. Madhupati Prabhu, are you available to read the next verse, text 2 of the first chapter of the fourth canto?
Okay. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Gurudas Jayadvaita Swami Tinam. Akutim Luchaye Pradar Api Bratra Matim Nipa Putrika Dharmam Ashritya Satarupa Anumodita. Translation: Akuti had two brothers, but in spite of her brothers, King Swayambhuva Manu handed her over to Prajapati Ruchi on the condition that the son born of her be returned to Manu as his son. This he did in consultation with his wife Satarupa. Purport. Sometimes a sonless person offers his daughter to a husband on the condition that his grandson be returned to him to be adopted as his son and inherit his property. This is called Putrika Dharma, which means that by execution of religious rituals, one gets a son, although one is sonless by one's own wife. But here we see extraordinary behavior in Manu, for in spite of his having two sons, he handed over his first daughter to Prajapati Ruchi on the condition that the son born of his daughter be returned to him as his son. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments in this connection that King Manu knew that the Supreme Personality of Godhead would take birth in the womb of Akuti. Therefore, in spite of having two sons, he wanted the particular son born of Akuti because he was ambitious to have the Supreme Personality of Godhead appear as his son and grandson. Manu is a lawgiver of mankind, and since he personally executed the Putrika Dharma, we may accept that such a system may be adopted by mankind also. Thus, even though one has a son, if one wants to have a particular son from one's daughter, one may give one's daughter in charity on that condition. That is the opinion of Srila Jayadvaita Swami. Om Agnanatimandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshunmitan Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Yeah. Here we see the mention of Putrika Dharma, which Swayambhu Manu personally executed, that though he had two sons, he married his first daughter to Prajapati Ruchi with the condition that the son born of the daughter, the grandson, Swayambhu Manu's grandson, will be handed over to Swayambhu Manu, knowing that, in his case, he was fortunate that knew that from Akuti, the Supreme Personality of Godhead will appear in her womb. So he wanted the Supreme Personality of Godhead to carry out the kingdom. And yeah, that's the mention of Putrika Dharma. It's a nice arrangement which Swayambhu Manu personally carried out.
It's notable here that Srimad Bhagavatam gives us the history of the world or the history of the universe in relationship to the personality of Godhead. So we're hearing about these great families, and we've heard about Lord Kapila Dev, hear about other incarnations. This is the interest of not just reading history in school, American history. It's all battles and what for? That was my question back then. Why do we have to memorize? What is the point? Who cares? Because it's meaningless, really. What do we care who the generals were under Washington or under Robert E. Lee or this one or that one? It's passing the tribute in the sense. Why do we have to fill our heads with this? And still, of course, to this day, that's what students are expected to do, is sit there and listen to and memorize or these useless facts. Only the the important things are selected. If somebody says, why do we have to study this? Some student, why do we have to study? Because it brings us closer to the absolute truth, to the personality of Godhead. It helps us execute the ultimate purpose of life. If we're asked, why do I have to learn this? We have answers. It's not just useless study because we want better citizens for our kind of next country. I wrote an essay for Back to Godhead because I saw in an airport in Peru a sign engraved in marble. Yo tuve el orgullo de ser peruano. I end up being Peruvian. And so if you grow up and you'll study the history of useless politicians there and useless history there, and yo tengo el orgullo, you'll be proud to have Peruvian citizens. It's stupid. It's just totally stupid. What is that? Bhomajati, Saiva Gokara. The cows and asses are proud of being cows and asses. So Bhagavatam's thing is purple in the ultimate sense of that everything is meant for bringing us for the ultimate goal of life, and not just for entertaining us or making us better citizens or some other purpose, which is ultimately of. So we're fortunate to be able to hear Bhagavatam.
Maharaj,
Hmm?
you were going to make an audio adjustment earlier because you were cutting out and it's happening again.
It's happening again. Well, I made the adjustment.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'll make another adjustment and see if it helps. I don't know if that's better where we, but now my setting by the time, so
Seems worse now.
it's worse.
Yeah, I think.
Well, Hare Krishna.
We're able to glean what you're saying, I think, but just some words drop out. So I thought if there was something that could be done.
I don't know what to say. There's nothing especially different. I'm on a different instrument, but it seems a good instrument. So I don't know what to tell you.
Do you use phone?
Phone, or I can join the different browser. I'll try the browser, see if that helps.
We have a comment from Saraswati Devi that interesting that Swayambhuva Manu didn't place the same condition to get Kapila Muni as his son and grandson through Devahuti.
Yeah.
And she asked, may I ask if reactions to sinful acts are in different degrees of intensity? For example, for a Brahmana, it is the highest degree of severity. For a Brahmana, it's the highest degree of severity for sinful reactions, but in the lowest man, there is no reactions generated from their overindulgence in sinful acts. So do they get a free pass?
So that's Saraswati's question.
Yeah.
Is my audio any better?
Sounds all right so far.
Okay. So are reactions heavier for those who should know better? That seems to be the question. I don't have an immediate reference. Except that we find that some things, as mentioned in the previous verses, some things which are not meant for the purified persons are tolerated for the those in the lower status. Payabhyantara Shuchi, the Brahmin's supposed to be pure in his internal and external affairs. If he's not, then there's some discrepancy. But if a Shudra is not pure in his external affairs or internal, that's not taken as such a great discrepancy. So what's legal for the Shudra may not be legal for the Brahmin. And if the Brahmin deviates from his prescribed duty, that's not very good. The Shudra also is expected to perform his prescribed duty, but his prescribed duty may not have such high expectations. I hope that helps in some way.
You mentioned that what's legal for the Shudra may not be legal for the Brahmana. I thought the reverse is also true. In the example of, I think, Lord Ramchandra, I think he beheaded a Shudra who was attempting to study Shastra, stepping beyond his bounds.
Everyone should perform his own duties. If you're a Brahmin, don't perform Sudra duties. If you're a Shudra, don't try to perform the duties of a Brahmin. Paradharmo bhayava.
Tulsi Priya Devi says, it would seem that if someone is allowed to behave in a certain way, it would be unjust to punish them more severely. Also, can you justify punishing someone who is less intelligent? I seem to recall reading something Prabhupada said to the effect of, women should not be punished.
Yeah, it's there.
Regarding knowing better, we have the 10th offense to the holy name, even after hearing so many instructions on the matter. To still maintain is one of the offenses, to continue to neglect the holy name. We have a comment from Guru Das Prabhu, Dandavats Maharaj and devotees. Maharaj, what you're saying sounds like when Prabhupada says there is no breaking the law for the animal, just for the human being.
Yeah. Sometimes the Shudras are considered to be hardly better than animals. So if they behave like animals, well, it's expected. But if a Brahmin behaves like an animal, that's not at all expected. The Brahmins are held to higher standards. What is that? Striya Shunam, Dutam Panam Striyam Shunam, Yatra Dharma Chaturvida. In that verse, it's said that the public leaders should be held to higher standards. Let's see. Maybe someone will come to that before I do. But in that sense, our ISKCON standards are correct, that the leaders, if leaders violate the principles of standard ethics concerning sexual behavior and other kinds of duties, then they're held to account. You can't be a leader. You can't be a leader and do these things. Let's see. My database doesn't want to show me what I want to see. Yeah, let's see. No. Give me one more moment. Yeah, there we go. It's in First Canto, Chapter 17. Well, Srila Jiva Goswami directs that drinking against scriptural principles, such principles as those which govern the Shautramani Yagya, association with women outside marriage, and killing animals, is against the injunctions of scripture. These are irreligious. In the Vedas, two different types of injunctions are there. One type for the pravrittas, those engaged in material enjoyment, and another for the nivrittas, those engaged in becoming liberated from material bondage. The Vedic injunction for the pravrittas is to gradually regulate their activities toward the path of liberation. Therefore, for those who are in the lowest stage of ignorance and who indulge in wine, women, and flesh, drinking by performing Sotramani Yagya, association of women by marriage, and flesh eating by sacrifices are sometimes recommended. Such recommendations in the Vedic literature are meant for a particular class of men, not for all. But because they are injunctions of the Vedas for particular types of persons, such activities by the pravrittas are not considered a dharma. One man's food may be poison for others. Similarly, what's recommended for those in the mode of ignorance may be poison for those in the mode of goodness. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhu therefore affirms that recommendations in the scriptures for a certain class of men are never to be considered a dharma or irreligious, but such activities are factually a dharma and they're never to be encouraged. But such activities, the recommendations in the scriptures are not meant for the encouragement of such a dharma, but for regulating the necessary dharma gradually toward the path of dharma. So this is the point, that it's all meant for advancement, but different kinds of regulations are given for different people.
We have a question. Sorry, go ahead, March.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Tosi,
There's the verse I was looking for, 41. Ataitani naseveta babushu purusha krishit visheshato dharma shilo raja loka patir guru. So whoever desires progressive well-being, especially kings, religionists, public leaders, Brahmins, and sannyasis, should never come in contact with the four above-mentioned religious principles. So Visheshata, especially, Dharma Shila, those who are on the progressive path of liberation, Dharma Shila. Raja, the kings. Lokapati, public leaders, and Guru, spiritual masters. They should be held to they should hold themselves to a higher standard. They should never be in touch with they should never break the four rules. That's basically what's being said here. Yes.
Tulsi Priya Devi, you have your hand up.
I withdraw my hand.
All right, we have a bunch in the chat box.
And we're also reaching the end of our time.
If it's all right with you, Guru Maharaj, they all seem to go by quickly, but only if it's all right.
Hey, you're in charge. I only work here.
Okay. Saraswati Devi says, but regardless of caste, class, everyone can become fully Krishna conscious and go back to Godhead, despite their so-called bad tendencies and inclinations. And Guru Das references, it would seem so in the case of Jagai and Madhai. So, and then Tulsi Priya Devi says, the only samskar Shudras are required to adopt is that of marriage. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then Saraswati Devi says, in my family, I have a sibling born with some mental challenges who got a free pass in almost all undesired activities, which I resented. Now I offer most support to him. And then our last comment from Praveen Krishna Prabhu, Loke vivayamisha madhya seva nitya hi jantor nahi tatra chodana Vyavastitisteshu vivahayanya sura grahair asunivritirishta. In this material world, the conditioned soul is always inclined to sex, meat eating, and intoxication. Therefore, religious scriptures never actually encourage such activities. Although the scriptural injunctions provide for sex through sacred marriage, for meat eating through sacrificial offerings, and for intoxication through the acceptance of ritual cups of wine, such ceremonies are meant for the ultimate purpose of renunciation. And thus we come to the end of our class. Panchatattva Prabhu, would you like to lead or nominate someone to lead?
I'll chant.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajagacharya Stotra Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajagacharya Stotra Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaura Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai,
Jai,
His Holiness
Jai,
Jayadvaita Maharaj ki jai.
Jai,
Samaveta Bhaktavindaki Jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Debo. Jai Maharaj, thank you very much.
Thank you, Guru Das Prabhu.
Thank you,
Thank
Guru
you,
Maharaj.
Prabhu. Jai Madhupati Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Shara. Hare Krishna.